Hello, crafty friends. This is Yana Smakula. Welcome back for another Yippee for Yana video. In today's video, I have something different for you. I'm sharing a remake of a video I did 9 years ago featuring monochromatic stamped floral patterns. 9 years ago, I did a video featuring a wonderful stamp set from Simon Says Stamp called Oh Happy Day. I love that set. It was absolutely amazing. I love the florals in that set. And I created a bunch of cards, stamped cards, pretty much one layer cards using just a few images from that set. In the recent Simon Says Stamp release, Friends Like You, there is a remake of that stamp set and it is called Happy Day. When I saw that stamp set, I was like, oh my gosh, this is brilliant. I love that this stamp set is back because it was so fantastic. It was absolutely amazing. And of course, I wanted to redo the video I did 9 years ago and share new tips and tricks with you, show you new ways, or maybe the same way, but slightly different way to create monochromatic stamped floral patterns. So here's a look at this stamp set, at the new version of this stamp set. We have that large bloom. That's the main image I will be using today, and also a little flower center. Now there's also a bunch of sentiments in the new version of that stamp set, and I will also use one of those sentiments on all of my cards. To create the monochromatic stamped patterns that I'm sharing in this video, you will need at least 3 shades of one ink color. I have 4 options for you, but if you look at the Simon Says Stamp positively saturated inks, each color comes, or each color family comes in set of 3. So you can pick up whichever one of those that you like best. Maybe you are a fan of purple colors or blue or teal or green or, pink, whichever is your favorite or whichever one you have. You just need to make sure you have 3 colors or 3 shades of one color to stamp this pattern. I'm using a clear block. I'm not using a MISTI, although you certainly can use a stamp positioning tool to create a pattern like this. However, using a clear block is much faster because we are going to do quite a lot of stamping. So I have a clear block that is large enough to fit my main floral image, and I'm going to do my stamping. The key here is to stamp the flower in groupings of 3 or 5 using the same color of ink. I have started with my lightest color, Melon, and this color family is Melon, Cantaloupe, and Sherbet. And I've stamped the flower 3 times to create sort of a visual triangle on my panel. This is Nina Solar White 80-pound cardstock. It is cut to 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, and this will create the front of my card. I will later trim this panel down, but for now, I'm keeping it to this size. I start with the lightest color, and then I stamp the medium color, and then the darkest color. This way, it's a little trick that I have for you. This way, I don't have to clean my stamp every time I switch to a different shade of ink. Of course, I will clean the stamp when I go to a different ink color, but when I'm working within one color family, when I go from light to dark, there's no need to clean my stamp, and therefore the stamping goes a lot faster. If you have gaps on your background, it's okay to come back to the other colors, to the other shades, to the lighter shades, and fill those gaps in using those lighter shades of ink. Now we also have this flower center image in this stamp set, and I like to stamp that using the darkest shade of whichever color I'm working with. And that just adds additional interest to the background. You don't have to do this, but I kind of like to, and I quite like the end result. You can also use different shades of ink for the flower center, but like I said, I just like to go with the darkest shade for the background. And this is the look at our first background. I just love the colors. I'm going to set this one aside, and let's go ahead and repeat. Next, I'm using pinks, and now I have carnation, peony, and rose. Once again, I'm starting with the lightest ink color, and I'm stamping my flowers, creating a triangle on the background. Again, this is that same paper, Nina Solar White 80-pound, cut to 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. Moving on to the next color, peony, in stamping those flowers. I'm going to speed up this portion of the video because I'm just repeating everything, and you can see that this really takes no time at all to stamp. Overall, one background took me probably 2 to 3 minutes to stamp, maybe even less. If I'm just stamping flowers, that's definitely 2 minutes. If I'm adding the flower centers, well, yeah, maybe there's another minute that I'm spending on the background. We're not really rushing here, but what I'm trying to say is you have cool looking background with minimal effort, not a lot of supplies, and you really are not spending a ton of time creating a background like this. So if you have this stamp set, I encourage you to give this idea a try. If you do not have this stamp set, maybe you have similar images in your stash and you can give them a go. So just grab your colored inks. Maybe you have the Simon Says Stamp Positively Saturated inks in the same color families, or, other colors, other shades. Go ahead and give them a try and create those beautiful backgrounds. You will notice that there's quite a lot of overlap happening on this panel, and that's exactly how we want to stamp these images. We are not masking these flowers, we are overlapping them as much as we can, and therefore, we really don't need to worry about any imperfections. You might have noticed I stamped 1 or 2 flowers imperfectly onto my background. I didn't have a full impression, but I didn't worry because I knew I would layer additional images over that, and once everything was finished, the imperfection really would not be visible. Now we are working on the last background I have for you today, and I'm using Cheeky, Blush, and Pucker inks to stamp this one. You can see that I started right away by stamping 5 flowers using my lightest ink color. I knew I'd be coming back to that lightest ink, so I went ahead and I stamped more flowers to begin with. Now, I also have one more pattern. I didn't film how I made it, but I have a yellow pattern for you, and for that pattern, I used butter, zest, and honey. In fact, that one I think is my favorite. I just really like the look of yellow. With the stamping done, I trimmed the panels to 3 3/4 by 5 inches, so I have a nice white border on the finished card. I used foam adhesive tape. In this particular case, I have tape from Alt New, and I foam mounted my background onto an A2 top folding card base. Next, I stamped Have a Happy Day sentiments for all of my cards. I'm using just one sentiment. I really like this particular message. I like the font, I like the size, I like the placement of the images. So I stamped 4 Have a Happy Day sentiments for my card. I used VersaFine Onyx Black ink for that. I cut the sentiments out using coordinating die. I backed them up with another layer of cardstock, and I foam mounted the sentiments onto my card using regular foam adhesive squares. In this particular case, I also embellished my card. I added 2 green leaves. The leaves were stamped using Perfection ink from this same stamp set. I have a couple of cards with the leaves and then a few cards with just the background and the sentiments. I embellished my cards using spellbinders or a sequence. I scattered a few here and there, again, creating a visual triangle on my cards, and that finished these projects. Like I said, these were so easy to make, but I had a blast creating them. I hope you feel inspired to create, and I hope you're going to give this idea a try. Thanks so much for joining me today. Love you guys, and I'll see you again next time. Bye!